It was nearly 2 a.m. when I saw it, a tiny red dot blinking just above the floorboard, behind the nightstand. I dropped my phone charger and reached blindly, expecting dust or a rogue sock. But instead, my fingers brushed cold metal. I pulled back, stared. That light, it wasn't supposed to be there. I held my breath, suddenly aware of how silent the room was. My heartbeat grew louder in the stillness. I glanced at the mirror across the room, and for the first time in years, it didn't reflect me. Eerily, it reflected intrusion. Something was wrong. Very, very wrong. And my husband, who was supposed to be on a business trip, wasn't answering his phone. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I moved slowly, deliberately, checking every corner of that bedroom with a handheld mirror and shaking hands. The smoke detector, had it always had that second lens? The picture frame on the dresser, why did it click when I moved it? With each new angle, each tiny observation, my stomach sank deeper into a place I didn't know existed. This wasn't paranoia. This was evidence. Cold, quiet, blinking proof. I wasn't being watched by the world. I was being watched by someone who knew my every routine, my every angle. My skin burned. The room, once mine, now felt like a stage, and I had no idea who the audience was. By moonlight, I sat at the edge of our bed, holding one of the lenses I'd pulled from the vent. It was smaller than a dime. Sleek. Professional. My fingers trembled. Not from fear exactly. Not yet. Oh? It was something colder. A chill that came from knowing this wasn't random. This was intentional. Installed with care. Placed with precision. I thought of every night I changed here, cried here, whispered secrets in the dark, and the idea that none of it had been mine. I whispered his name, not in anger, not yet, just to taste it in my mouth one last time before the truth started to rot it from the inside. I waited until morning light bled pale through the curtains. Then I opened his laptop. The password hadn't changed, the kind of detail that feels like trust until it doesn't. At first, everything looked normal. Emails, spreadsheets, vacation folders. But then I found the drive. Buried deep, labeled innocuously. Interior temps. My finger hesitated, then clicked. Dozens of video files blinked to life. All of them labeled with dates and times that matched the nights he said he was away. I opened one. There I was, sleeping, alone. Or so I thought. My hand went to my mouth, but the scream never came. Just a silence so sharp it nearly split me in half. The footage was intimate, unforgivable. Me stepping out of the shower. Me crying into a pillow after one of our fights. Me staring blankly at the ceiling, thinking I was alone in the dark. I watched for seconds that felt like hours. Every clip was filmed from a different angle. Whoever placed these cameras, they knew my routines, my habits, my vulnerabilities. But as I kept watching, something shifted. In one frame, the camera caught movement. Not mine, someone else. A figure entering the room when I wasn't there. A woman. Tall. Familiar. And suddenly, everything snapped into focus with terrifying clarity. This wasn't just him. It was her. I paused the video. Zoomed in. There, in the mirror's edge, her reflection. Blonde hair. Designer nails. The little silver bracelet she always wore. The one I'd pretended not to notice on her wrist when she visited us for dinner, calling herself his coworker. She wasn't just sleeping with my husband. She was surveilling me, documenting me, violating me in the one place I was supposed to be safe. I I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at that reflection like it was a ghost I'd let into my home, let sit at my table, let laugh at my wine-stained jokes. And now she was laughing at something else. Me. Caged. Exposed. Unaware. I started searching everything. Drawers. Picture frames. Light fixtures. My jewelry box, where I kept things he never touched. Even that felt tainted. And beneath soft padding, in a velvet ring box I hadn't opened in months, I found it. A small black disc, barely the size of a quarter. Smooth. Cold. A tracker. My blood stopped moving. It wasn't just my bedroom. They wanted to know where I was, even when I left. How I moved. When I was alone, I clenched it in my fist so hard my nails bit skin. What kind of woman does this to another woman? I used to think betrayal came in whispers and lies. I never imagined it came with lenses and GPs. I called him, not because I thought he'd confess, but because I needed to hear his voice. To confirm, it was still the same voice from those nights, those lies, those fake apologies. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, babe," he said too casually. My skin went cold. I looked out the window, the reflection of my own face caught in the glass, and behind it, the skyline, glowing like a city I no longer recognized. "How's the hotel?" I asked. He said it was fine. No mention of her. "Of course not. Miss you?" he added. I said nothing. Just let the silence stretch, like wire tightening around his throat. Then I hung up. Let him feel it, that shift. That night, I turned off every light. Sat in bed wearing the silk robe he bought me last Christmas, the one she probably suggested. I knew that the camera was still recording, knew exactly which angle it had. I walked to the mirror, stared into it. The red light blinked slowly, rhythmically, like a heart trying to remember how to beat. I didn't flinch, didn't try. I wanted her to see me, wanted her to know I knew. I stood there for a long time, eyes locked on my reflection, not the woman I was, but the one I was becoming. And in that quiet, pulsing red glow, I started to plan what came next. I ordered a decoy online, identical in shape, same cold black finish, same blinking red eye. When it arrived, I unscrewed the original and replaced it in silence. I didn't destroy hers. No, I wanted her to believe it was still working. Let her keep watching. But now what she'd see would be curated. Me laughing at old movies I didn't find funny. Me lying still in bed with one eye open. Me whispering his name into the dark, over and over, like a prayer or a warning. This wasn't about catching them anymore. It was about performance. Reclaiming control. Turning their theater into mine. He came back 2 days later, smiling, suitcase in hand. Kissed my cheek like he hadn't shattered every boundary I thought existed. I watched his reflection as he unpacked, tossing shirts onto the bed, humming some stupid song. And there I was behind him, smiling. Not because I forgave him, but because I was about to let him walk into the exact trap they built for me. "How was the trip?" I asked, my voice syrup sweet. He glanced up. "Productive." That word. I almost laughed. He had no idea what kind of production I'd turned this into. No script. No escape. Just truth, slowly crawling through the wires he'd thought were his. That night, I connected to the hidden cloud drive she didn't password protect. Carelessness is always a tell. The feed came up instantly. There they were, my husband and her, in my space, her hands tracing the headboard like she owned it. I wasn't surprised. I was relieved. Finally, confirmation. Finally, closure. I hit record. Let them write their own confession. I imagined her watching my face through her fake lens while I watched her from mine. A closed loop of betrayal. Two women staring across digital glass, both unblinking. But only one of us knew how this story ended, and it wasn't the one on top of my sheets. I didn't scream, didn't throw things, didn't tell him I knew. I walked into a lawyer's office the next morning and handed over an envelope. No name, no return address. Just the truth, printed frame by frame. Stills of her in my bedroom. Stills of him smiling while I slept. The lawyer didn't ask questions, just nodded. The law is funny that way. It doesn't care how your heart breaks, only how you document the wreckage. And I had documentation. I'd been the exhibit. Now I was the prosecutor. Let them argue privacy. I had the receipts, and they were time-stamped in red. He came home that evening with a white envelope in his hand and confusion crawling all over his face. "What the hell is this?" he asked, as if the answer wasn't already bleeding through every page. I didn't even look at him, just kept folding the sheets he'd shared with someone else. "Looks like legal trouble," I said softly. He laughed, like it was absurd. "Are you serious?" I met his eyes for the first time in days. "Do I look like I'm joking?" He didn't reply, didn't move, just stood there with his world suddenly smaller than a bedroom wiretap. And I kept folding. Let him feel it. Let it settle into his spine like cold air. That night, I pulled out the real lenses, one by one. Smoke detector, vent dot, frame. I held them each in my palm like tiny dead insects. Not angry, just done. I dropped them into a box lined with black velvet, my own funeral for trust. No ceremony, no closure. Just a private burial for the parts of me that once wanted to believe him. I lit a candle, not for peace, for memory. I needed to remember what it felt like to be watched and not known. Betrayed and still beautiful. I sat on the bed, my bed, and for the first time in months, felt like it belonged to me again. I sat at my vanity, removing the earrings he once bought me. Little silver things, delicate and hollow. They hit the dish with a soft clink. My reflection didn't move, just watched me. Not with sadness, not with revenge. Just a quiet clarity I hadn't seen in years. Behind me, the room looked unchanged. Same paint, same bed, same shadows. But something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't the woman who had whispered in the dark anymore. I wasn't the girl waiting to be chosen. I was the one who had seen everything and decided what came next. That red light no longer blinked. But something inside me did. Awake. Aware. Done pretending. I rearranged everything. Not just the furniture, the story. The hallway cameras now faced outward. The locks had changed. The silence was mine again. I walked barefoot with a glass of wine in hand. Every step deliberate. Every creak in the floorboard a promise. You don't own me. Not anymore. If she ever came back, if he ever tried to explain, they'd find a different woman waiting. One with no interest in apologies. I didn't need revenge. I needed distance. And I'd carved it with glass, ink, and silence. Let them wonder where I went. Let them check the footage and find nothing. The new show had no audience. In the back of my closet, behind old scarves and boxes of wedding china we never used, I keep one drawer locked. Inside are the things they left behind, or thought I wouldn't notice. The camera pieces, the broken lenses, a shade of lipstick she wore when she smiled at me that last dinner, and one note, written in my handwriting tucked beneath it all. I see you now. I don't need to open it often. Just enough to remember what it cost to reclaim my life. The truth